Oh, Israel has to solve the Palestinian problem. Israel has to solve this. There, no more excuses. Even if you've got to railroad the fucking Palestinian people into some fucking deal, you have to get it done. It's so fucking stupid at this point. Like, the Gaza Strip is Hamas's, or not Hamas, it's like Iran's like biggest entry point into like stupid shit on right now. The Israel and the Palestinians, the Jews, the Israelites, I don't know what the Israelis, not Israelites. The Israelis and the Palestinians have to reach some kind of solution to figure out the final status on borders and refugees and all that. That has to happen. Zatsui, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. It represents such a point of instability for that entire region that like everybody can just take advantage of it. The West is willing to shoot down Iranian missiles and drones. Why not shoot down Russian ones over Ukraine? Because Russia is a big boy with nuclear weapons, and Iran is not a very big boy, not nuclear weapons yet. Why is it so important now, though, and not like 20 years ago? Well, 20 years ago was important, too. But like as it drags on longer and longer, it becomes more and more important. It becomes harder and harder. Harder and harder to what? Harder and harder to figure out what the final arrangement is going to be. Because every year, the settlements continue to expand. The Palestinian territory gets smaller. The international support for the Palestinians gets more meaningless but louder. But yeah. But is it even possible to reach an agreement with Palestine at this point? My family is Lebanese, moderate even, and I can't imagine for a second any of them being good with peace with Israel right now. I don't care. It has to happen. It's not an option anymore. It has to happen. There has to be something. You've got to stop treating these autocratic regimes like they represent the interests of their respective countries. You've done it with Russia, China, and now Iran. You've got to do better. I don't think you can make a blanket statement on that, my dude. I think that some autocracies can represent their people decently well, and some are just very far off. I think it depends on the regime. I've heard this said over and over again, but I'm very scared about just repeating stuff I've heard, because when I do research, but I've heard it said over and over again that the Iranian Ayatollah doesn't represent the Iranian people. That Iranian people. I know every Persian I've met in the United States hates Iran, but that could just be my bubble. And then I've heard it said over and over again that the people in Iran don't support the Ayatollah. Now, why they haven't been overthrown, or there's like a military coup or some other shit, I don't know. But I think that like when I look historically at like Egypt, like they would coup their leaders, and I feel like their dictators represented their people decently well. When I look at like the monarchs, and would you consider like a monarch an autocratic regime? Autocrat means like one leader, right? Autocratic. What's the difference between like an autocracy, autocratic versus dictator? Hold on. Become a member? Yeah, I'm good on that one, chief. Autocracy is a system of government which absolute power is held by the ruler, known as an autocrat, and includes most forms of monarchy and dictatorship. Okay, yeah. So like all the Gulf states are autocratic, right? But they like represent they have to respond. They have to respond to public pressure. Let me put it that way. If Israel bombs citizen regions in Iran, will you pivot your stand-ins on pro-Israeli side? I don't understand what you guys know. There's not like one thing that would change my entire perspective on a thing. That it never works that way. If Israel were to bomb Iranian citizens, that would be bad. I would be opposed to that. It would be stupid and it would be bad. It would be both of those things. More stupid than bad. It would be unbelievably stupid. But one thing wouldn't change my entire perspective on it. America can do bad or stupid things. Like, oh, will you hate America now? No, that's not how that works. No. But it would be really stupid, and I would oppose the move. If you do enough of those things, it can flip your opinion. But there's not just one thing that any country can do that should flip your entire opinion on an entire country. That's wild. Never mind, your brain is owned. Okay, Cloudan from YouTube chat. Thank you. At Destiny, the population's desire is largely irrelevant in autocratic regimes because they don't have political power. I think you are wrong. You have political power in autocratic regimes. It's just at the end of a sword. I think that for autocratic regimes, you can be a bit more unpopular because people aren't voting for you. You're not going to get, if 40% of the population, supports you and 60% wants you gone, you're probably okay. But if you become wildly unpopular, you're going to get couped or you're going to get assassinated and somebody else is going to step in. even in monarchies and even in autocracies, the leadership is very sensitive to the people. Because at the end of the day, as much as people say like, oh, currency is fake, it's just paper, leadership is fake. It's a title, which means nothing. The universe doesn't recognize your role as king any more than your people will if they feel like you're not representing, at the very least, the interests of the country or whatever it is you ostensibly claim to represent. You fucking idiot. What if all of Israel DDoSed you every day right before stream? Then we're all getting alien Luagos or the Hassan guns, and we're going over there. Destiny, they have zero political power, and you saying that is a clear indicator that you need to read up on autocracy and their resource to personalism and coercion. Or their request, I'm good. You can go read. Go read and do some history, okay? Or go read a Wikipedia, okay? Motormouth. No, you see this or at the very least in the Middle East, all of the leadership responds to the pressure from the people and how they view and how they're viewed from the people. Like you see them making decisions on that. You see them getting into wars because they're worried about losing legitimacy to other states or losing legitimacy in the eyes of their people. You see coups happening. In Egypt, you saw it. In Jordan, it almost happened, right? With the PLO trying to overthrow the monarchy. In Syria, it's that country's whole history is and in Lebanon, Christ, and in Yemen. Yo, why am I responding to you? Fuck off. It's not a cartoon. In a cartoon, the leader has leadership, and in a cartoon, he just uses the military to kill all the people. If you go against me, I'm gonna kill you. And in a cartoon, that's how autocracies and dictatorships work. In the real world, they don't work that way. In the real world, if you become dramatically unpopular, there's a lot of people that are gonna be around you looking at you like, well, who's this motherfucker? All right? Because if people are going to come marching in here and they're going to kill you, it's going to look more like a Game of Thrones situations where you've got the Lannisters opening their arms and saying, okay, hey, you're coming to the city. F these guys. That's probably a more realistic outcome than a dictator, right? Where you switch sides. You're like, wait, well, I'll be part of the new group of people because this guy sucks. And then you let the other people in and they kill the king. Yeah. Every escalation in a conflict puts Jordanian regime at risk, a popular coup, especially when the Hashemite army just showed that it will help defend Israel. Do you think that's a fair assessment of political power? By that argument, all governments necessarily react to pressure from the people, but is that really how we typically describe political power? Well, if you're going to describe political power as just voting, well then, by definition, then we don't have to argue. You can just say, oh no, Destiny, when I said political power, I meant voting. And I go, oh, okay, well then obviously, yeah, you have no political power in a dictatorship because you literally can't vote. So I mean, like, yeah. Do any brutal dictatorships exist in the modern world in your eyes? Brutal dictatorships. I'm sure, I don't know any African history. I'm sure that throughout Africa, or even modern shit, I'm sure there were probably that shit going on right now. North Korea seems pretty bad. I don't really know much of the details about it. I'm not sure right now if there's just like an actual like super standard horrible brutal dictator right now outside of Africa, which I know nothing about, country by country. So, Putin, I guess it depends on what we consider a brutal dictatorship. I'm thinking when I think of brutal dictatorship, I think like entire, like population living substandard, like regular killings, like no political dissent allowed whatsoever. Like Russia is bad, but would I consider Russia like the brutal dictatorship of, you know, like what you would consider in the, I don't know, Syria maybe? The reason why I'm not bringing up Syria and Yemen is because I don't even know the stability of those countries right now. Didn't Assad gas his people? Well, kind of. Assad gassed rebel fighters in his country, like in a civil war. It's kind of his people, and chemical weapons are bad. But it's not like he was just gassing his people, like, I don't believe, just as like a brutal dictator. I feel like the last like brutal dictator that I can think of was probably Saddam Hussein. The Taliban might qualify as brutal dictators. I don't know much about that country right now, but Saudi Arabia, I don't think so. Oh, Gaddafi from Libya, maybe. But that I try not to say. It's hard to ascribe like brutal dictatorship to like a highly unstable country because that just feels like a fucked situation. I don't know if I would be like, oh, this is because of a brutal dictatorship. Like, well, it just seems like it's like Syria right now is like just. But why wouldn't Saudi count? Isn't the standard of living and everything in Saudi Arabia like generally pretty good? Isn't it like a pretty decent to live place? I mean, like obviously their standards and rights on like women and gay people and all that are a lot different, but